I think the youngsters of today should know the India in which we lived. You and later people like me.
I recall waiting for 4-5 years for a scooter.
I waited for 8 years to get my first Bajaj scooter, and that also because there was an option that if you are willing to pay the advance in US dollar, one if your cousin or friend is, then it can get reduced to 5 years or less.
Many of today's young entrepreneurs are grappling with rapid change, competitive markets, and tight margins. From your experience, what is the one piece of advice you would offer to business leaders who are trying to build something lasting?
On one, I must compliment the younger generation of today. They're bold, they're willing to fail. Unlike our days, when we were looking for safety net, we were very quite contented if we join a PSU because we thought we have joined, our life is made. These youngsters are blessed. They are willing to experiment on various kinds of startup. The investors are willing to bank. They are willing to wait till these youngsters are able to reach a point where they break even or start growing. But the flip side is a lot of startups are also failing.
Mr. Jamshedji Tata mentioned it 100 years ago, that a country can only be considered independent when it has technological and economic power. Political power is not enough to be independent.
Absolutely.
Challenge is, we expect this from the younger generation. We seem to have given them the notion, innovate, startup, and sustenance after startup, sustenance after innovation, and continual improvement. If it is not done, best of the innovation will fail. How do we give a startup when the large manufacturing companies in India, are they able to do that? Are they able to make world-class products? The best in the world originated from India, not replicated somewhere. Can we set an example to them? Look, it is possible.
We have to come up with a product or solution for the world. The advantage is when you produce a product or service for the world, there are 130 or 150 countries with different culture expectation. You need to meet those standards. So you have to have a robust R&D. Now there are 2-3 ways of doing. One is to look at government to help you, give you a subsidy beyond a point they can't do. Or big corporates, can they take a lead up to a point? This is where I have a lot of tremendous confidence on our youngsters.
Namaste. Today is the first time I'm participating in a podcast with two well-known people who have made excellent contribution to the society on the whole, especially in the manufacturing space. The second guest is Mr. Gopal Subramanyam. I heard him only about a month ago, and I found his experience quite relevant, and that should be known to the people at large, so they can learn something new and something different. So Gopal, I had not known for long, but I found him very enthusiastic and relevant, having worked with the industry for 40 years and well-known companies, L&T and then subsequently L&T Komatsu, and then now at the SKF as a non-executive chairman. So I found his experience so relevant for the benefit of manufacturing in India, and he kindly consented to be a part of this podcast. And I hope you will enjoy, learn something new, something different. And as I've learned in life, when we learn something new, it takes years to practice it. It doesn't give results immediately. Don't be impatient. Try it out. You'll find difficulties. Find a way to overcome it, and you will succeed. All the best. Gopal, so kind of you to accept my invitation to join this podcast. I met you about 6 weeks ago in December at ISQ award ceremony, where you so kindly consented to be the chief guest and give away the awards. And when you spoke there about your experience, I thought it was very relevant for people to know the learnings from what you have been through, how you did it, and that's the reason I invited you to this podcast, because I believe your messages are relevant and very useful in the context of manufacturing in particular, and even otherwise general business. So that's the reason we are having this, and I deeply appreciate that. So maybe if you can start with giving some of your own background, and then we can get down to the specifics.
First of all, thank you very much, Mr. Janak Mehta. You are a very well-known doyen and one of the founders of TQM movement in India, or the founder of TQM movement. Indeed a pleasure for me to respond to your call and then come for this podcast. And of course, it's also a pleasure for me to share my experience, particularly in the field of manufacturing in which I have grown almost all my life. A brief background of myself. I graduated in engineering from the University of Madras in 1976 in mechanical engineering. Worked in 4 organizations in my career, but predominantly in one of them, which is Larsen & Toubro group of companies. I started my career immediately after graduating in 76 at India's the best tool and die making company called Netto Technical Training Foundation, which was established under the Indo-Swiss government agreement to impart very, very high specialty skill in the art of tool and die making. I'll tell more about it later. I started my career and had baptism, to say, for 5 years in that. Thereafter, I joined Larsen & Toubro in Bangalore. At that time, Larsen & Toubro Bangalore was a pioneer to introduce earth-moving equipment using hydraulic drives with technology from Poquelin of France. Even today, any excavator is referred to in India as Poquelin, not as excavator, just the way a backhoe loader is referred to as JCB. Similarly, a hydraulic excavator is referred to as Poquelin. So I joined them pretty early in 1981 and worked with them for almost 32 years. So I'm almost a lifer at Larsen & Toubro and various verticals in earth moving division, in thermal power plant equipment, auxiliaries, with some of the best technology partners of the world, with Komatsu in a joint venture, and I ultimately became the chief executive of that joint venture. And also tire plant equipment manufacturing division. So about 4 verticals I worked in L&T. Now, L&T is a conglomerate, as you know. After retirement, I decided that I must give back to society what I've learned. So there are 2 things I did. One is I went and enrolled myself in CII Institute of Quality to become an assessor for business excellence. The other thing I did was I went and did a course at the Institute of Directors to become a certified director so that I can join some board and contribute. So ever since I retired in 2014 from L&T, I've been working pretty closely with CII Institute of Quality to begin with as an assessor for business excellence, later as a jury member, also as a jury member of India's best integrated steel plant under the aegis of Ministry of Steel to award Prime Minister's trophy. I'm also currently on the boards of 2 companies as chairman of the board of SKF India Limited and also an independent director on Titan Engineering and Automation, which is a Tata enterprise. That's my brief background.
Excellent, very wide experience and in depth, in especially L&T and equipment manufacturing. So let's start the rolling. I'll raise certain queries and would like to hear your responses to that. Yeah. You and I have witnessed decades of transformation in India's industrial and manufacturing sectors. We've done almost 40 years. I've done in industry for 25 years and then subsequently 35 years as consultant. Let me start by asking you this. When you first began your journey in this field, what was the environment like? What were the challenges you faced as you climbed the ranks and how did you navigate them?
Excellent question. Can I answer? Yeah. I think the youngsters of today should know the India in which we lived, you and later people like me. We lived India had got its freedom in 1947. The founding fathers of our country rightly thought that we have to prime the economy in a certain way which is state-driven. So India, they ushered in plenty of public sector enterprises. HAL, HMT, BEL, Indian Telephone Industry, BHEL on one side. That is to prime in terms of generate jobs and prime. I don't think they had in mind profit making at that time. That is one part of it. The founding fathers also said that we need to prime in the form of educational institutes of very high order. That's how IITs and NITs, which was earlier called Regional Engineering College, was born, Government Engineering College was born. And at the lower strata of society, a lot of Indian ITIs were started to develop people in the art of. So in such an atmosphere, Indian industry was chugging along in a very slow manner. They didn't have technology. the technology had to be borrowed from the leaders of the world. Like, Ambassador car, which is many of them won't know, they had to borrow the technology from US and UK and so on and so forth. When I graduated in 76, I was very fortunate to join NTTF, and after I joined, I found that when you want to mass produce in those days, be it auto components or electrical components for electrical motors or the dashboard of the dashboard instruments of a car or a truck or a tractor needed, or electronic components, telephone, they basically needed molds and dies which were imported. Nothing was made in the country, and they needed tremendous amount of skill as well as very, very sophisticated machines to make. And these tools and dies would mass produce close to 100,000 to even 1 million components with a little bit of maintenance. So NTTF was started by Swiss experts because this expertise was available only in Germany, Sweden and Switzerland. Switzerland was and continues to be famous for watchmaking. All these requires dies, press tools and molds. So I had excellent baptism in this. But the flip side of that is the quality. When you talk about quality, the mindset was conform to drawing. It didn't matter while conforming to drawing how many components get rejected. Ultimately, what comes out must be in conformance to the design specification. This was the era in which I grew because A, technology had come from abroad, B, the job of Indian manufacturers was to conform. So you could afford to reject because the payoffs was much high as against importing at high duty of 85 or even more than 85% customs duty. It was worth it. So that was the era. Even raw material used to be imported. And when you do machining or heat treatment or any of this, if there is a rejection, if there is no conformity, you could dispose it and start all over again. So there was never focus. The focus was conform to the design spec. That was the quality moment in the era in which I started tremendous learning. But as I started moving on from there, after 5 years at NTTF, I thought that is the end of the world. The highest in precision is happening there because we are conforming to quality at any cost, highly skilled. I joined Larsen & Toubro, and the brief was the excavator that we were making was under the technology and license agreement with a French company. And Government of India had granted this on the condition that there will be a phased manufacturing program by which we will reduce the import content because India didn't have the luxury of forex and balance of payment. We didn't have forex reserve. So company was told that they had an obligation, while we allow you to make this, your import content should come down. One of the biggest import content and high value content was hydraulic components. So there was no ready-made skill or competency available of either workmen in the shop floor or engineers in the technology of making hydraulic component high precision. So when I came there, I had a shock. You not only have to conform to quality and make it somehow, but every component you make, every pump or a motor or a cylinder you make, the contents of that should be replaceable if there is a failure in the field. That means interchangeability was important, and not just the size, but size, finish and the geometry of the part. So you should make components in such a way that the manufacturing process should be capable of giving your process capability and repeatability of the conformance. This was a jolt for me, but tremendous learning. This was prevalent, be it in automobile or this. So this I'm talking about early 80s up to 1990, right? Where a lot of people, where scaling was happening, be it two-wheeler, because between 1985 and 90, as you know, the four major Indo-Japanese two-wheeler companies came. Honda, Suzuki, Yamaha, all this started coming. And there was a demand, people were buying, but there was a need to scale up. And you could not have this concept of end of the line quality, reject and remake. You had to make components which are repeatable, which will be replaceable should there be any failure of any engine or transmission component so therefore, in a way, X bar and X bar R chart, what you talk, had to be observed. This was the phase in which I got formatted between 76 and 1990 at both NTTF and L&T, and thanks to some excellent technical assistance we got from our collaborators like Poclane in those days, or Swiss experts who imparted the art of making it as per drawing and make sure that there are no errors. It was an excellent grounding to begin with for the first 10-15 years.
Great term.
So in a way it was conformance to quality.
Right. And if I recall, in those days, non-conformance was also the norm in many countries.
Yeah.
If it didn't conform, what do you do? Since the customer has no choice, you push it into the market. But the challenge is, like you mentioned about post-independence, some very good things that happened. But what would you think about the licensing system, which led to 85% custom duties and all that? Do you think that played any role in the way we started in the manufacturing and the quality context?
Could you please elaborate this?
The licensing system which started at the same time when some of the good things happened, this licensing system, did it play a role which led to high duties to protect the industry and cascading effect? Did it play a role in quality becoming, products becoming non-competitive, in the sense there's no competition at that point of time?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's what happened till 1990. We were living in a protected economy. The whole mantra was, if you want to make, it is for the domestic consumption and it is within a limited capability. I mean, License Raj did not allow an industry or a company to produce more. Okay. So in a way, it was a very closed door. It was for domestic consumption. It was for a limited consumption. So therefore, this license that we got, it in a way made us complacent. It did not allow us to think innovative, to give solutions which can be much more than what the licensor has given to a licensee. So we were living in a cocoon. We were living in a protected atmosphere. People were waiting, willing to wait for the machine to be rolled out, right? Even 6, 8, 10 months or even 1 year after the promised delivery date, even after paying advance. And customers were forgiving. They were willing to put up a quality which did not meet the stated specification. We became a victim of this till 1990. Yes, this did make us complacent and we got away with it.
Right. Actually, the customer didn't have a choice. I recall waiting for 4-5 years for a scooter.
I waited for 8 years to get my first Bajaj scooter, and that also because there was an option that if you are willing to pay the advance in US dollar, if your cousin or friend is, then it can get reduced to 5 years or less.
So I think in that era, when the availability itself was in question, because of the limitation in capacity, it's not that Bajaj Auto they could expand, but they were not allowed to expand. To protect what? Scooters India. So that in that environment, quality became a victim. Right. So we learned to live with it. And another thing which I recall, I'm just sharing some of my thoughts, the unions became very strong. So irrespective of what they did, you had to sign off, and in many companies. So that created, quality get degraded. You had no choice but to learn to live with it. Producer could make money because he had no competition, so it was cost plus kind of an economy, till in some segments the government put a price control that had its own negative impacts. So moving on from there, now let me go to my next question. Gopal, in this context, since in the era of controlled economy, there were another factor which we talked about is the labor management relationship. What was your experience to maneuver this or to manage this in that environment?
Oh, my experience was very profound. See, those were the days when the management and union relationship used to be on the basis of confrontation, right? But I must tell you, to the credit of Larsen & Toubro, where I worked almost 3/4 of my career, we followed the principle of, instead of confrontation, collaboration. Here is what I mean by that. So once in 3 or 4 years, the union will give a charter of demand seeking wage hike, and that will be followed by very protracted discussions, negotiations. Two parties will take two extreme stand, and a point will come where it'll reach a point where there will be no further movement. So one of the parties will decide to resort to confrontation. Now, sometimes it's a posture. While many other managements in the country preferred confrontation as a route, because they felt that's the only way to put an end to this and close the issue. In L&T, we believed in dialogue. We had patience. So much so, many outsiders used to think that perhaps we are pampering, quote unquote. The fact was not that. If we have a unsatisfied agreement made with the union, thereafter implementing that is a problem. So we used to exercise a lot of caution. Number two, in Larsen & Toubro, every one of us, line managers, production managers, people who are in the plant, we were doubling up as a HR manager. We used to issue letters of any indiscipline. We ourselves used to conduct inquiry, and we were a part of the whole process. Similarly, performance appraisal process of L&T, which you know, we are one of the earliest implementers of performance appraisal system in the early 80s with the help of two professors of IIM, Uday Parekh and Mr. T.V. Rao. So, be it workmen or junior level engineers or senior managers, everywhere it was transparent. We believed in the art of working with the people in a mode of collaboration. Even though what would have taken 8 months to close an issue, we may have taken 12 months, but thereafter it was long lasting. So we were very fortunate. I'm sure there were other companies also who were doing, but I'm very proud to say we were following this path thanks to our forefathers. We never ever allowed that to reach a flash point. If at all it reached a flash point, it might have been a posture, but we used to come back to the negotiating table, discuss, thrash out the issues. It used to be a give and take, and we used to also follow pay for performance model, where the workmen also would be partaking the share of the profit we make in the form of excellent incentives. And many workmen have sent their children to engineering college, medical college, bought their own cars. And even today when those union leaders meet me, they proudly tell me that your pay for performance system is what made us send our children to engineering and medicine and so on, and buy a new house and so on and so on. I'm not saying L&T was the only company. There are many examples in this country, but I am very proud to say that we converted that challenge from confrontation to collaboration mode.
That's an excellent thought. Thank you very much. So let's move on. Your tenure at L&T Komatsu is often cited as a benchmark in industrial relationship, which you just explained. Leading a company through the challenges of manufacturing and construction is no small feat. What do you think was your most significant contribution during that time and your most significant learning?
To be modest, I must also talk about the challenges as well as contribution that I and my team made. You mentioned about Komatsu. So L&T was a pioneer in hydraulic excavator manufacturing, as I told you, in early 70s with license agreement with Poquelin of France. We were the first company to introduce hydraulic excavator in the country, but under license agreement. You were talking about complacency. Yes, indeed, L&T used to enjoy brute market share to the tune of even 85%. But come 1985 or 86, our competitors also got license or formed joint venture with Japanese companies. And Japanese companies, compared to, as you know, you were in machine tool, which were robust, had a long life, they came with sleek machines which are faster. So L&T got a knock on its head. Our market share plummeted from 85% to very low level. And we had to make do with whatever technology we had. So our company's management said, how do we access the best technology of today? And also I must tell you, L&T was earlier associated with Caterpillar, in a small way. So the company took a call, and post 1990, we must talk of economic liberalization. Many people abroad, because Indian economy was liberalized, license Raj was removed, so many companies and world leaders in earth moving, automotive, electronic or wine goods were willing to come to India with a condition that they have a skin in the game, either as a wholly owned subsidiary of their parent company or form a joint venture with an Indian company. So they were willing to give us the latest technology, whereas earlier license was, we used to get a technology which was 2 or 3 generations back, and India was willing to tolerate it. So here was a game changer. Post 1991, economic liberalization brought in competition, and foreign companies were willing to come to India with latest technology with one condition, that either they will run it completely themselves or joint venture with a famous company. So L&T and Komatsu joined hand, and the L&T's earth moving division in Bangalore was conveyed to a joint venture as a joint venture company on 50-50 joint venture basis. And Komatsu brought in latest technology in excavator. Machines were fast and high speed, high productivity. But the flip side of it, it had a lot of import contents in that. So every machine we made and rolled out to customer was very happy. The first machine that we rolled out was a model called PC200, which is a 20-ton excavator, model 6. Customers were extremely happy, and L&T is legendary in after sales service. We support the customer to the hilt throughout the lifetime of the machine, be it in the night or early morning. When customer calls from a remote place, our engineers will rush and go and diagnose and fix the problem. Customers are happy, machines are high productive, but we were not able to make profit on those machines because import content was very high. Our direct material cost was high. The first challenge that we took head on was, we told our joint venture partner, look, we have an excellent hydraulic component manufacturing plant which knows inside out how to make hydraulic components. Why should we import all this? So we started localizing that, and we had access to Komatsu technology. And we overcame the challenge of what we used to call as direct material cost, and started reducing in a phased manner for every machine close to the tune of 1.5 lakhs by localization. Because we had the machine, we had the skill, our workers, our engineers were very conversant. That is one part of it. Similarly, in making all those very demanding, stressed structures, L&T was way ahead of our competition. Our structures of the machine, whether be it the boom or the arm or bucket, we were able to make to Komatsu standard with zero defect, repetitively on a repetitive manufacturing mode, and localize that, right? And what else is left with? Only engine. Engine was very high tech that we continue to import. So that challenge we overcame model after model by reducing the cost. Okay, and I played a very big role in localizing those high cost hydraulic components. And I must tell, this was thanks due to my excellent team of engineers and workers who were high skilled, who could quickly translate the Komatsu standards and specification to conformance quality on a repetitive mode. So this was one challenge. Okay. The other challenge, as we started scaling up, okay, we started following a model similar to what, excavator is gigantic machine. The smallest excavator that we were making weighed 7 tons when it rolled out, and the biggest one was 60 tons. Now, how do you bring out in an assembly line in a very predictable manner an assured output on what we know as takt time mode, which automobile companies do? That means at every X minutes, one excavator will roll out in a way that it can be quality checked with running in test and painted and shipped, which was not happening earlier. So I also played a role along with my team members in setting up a low cost automation, a semi-automated mode where at a predictable time we could roll out machine and meet the demand which was going up, because our machines were very popular. Customers liked it. We started also reducing the cost. We started making profit, but we were gasping for breath for productivity. Therefore we did that, but with one condition: we had to convince our union. Had protracted meetings with them. We told them what is there in it for us. We also said we'll also give you pay for performance for X number of machines rolled out on the basis of takt out. So these are the 2-3 challenges were overcome in terms of localization, reducing the cost. Challenges were overcome in terms of giving an assured output to meet the demand which was pulling. And third was in the area of how do you match a supply chain to meet this? We can't have a tremendous amount of inventory. So we did a supply chain transformation to match this predictable takt time mode output of our excavators. So we fired on all these engines. Our output went up 5x with a very paltry investment of low cost automation of 90 lakhs. This I'm talking about 2003-4.
Excellent. In this context, while you got technology from Komatsu, did you have any interaction or infusion of the management aspects of how do you manage an organization from Komatsu?
Oh yeah. This was a third, I would call, version 1 was conformance to quality. Version 2 was how do we make parts or components which can be on a repeatable mode so that any interchangeability in the field is possible. Version 3 is what Komatsu management told us. That is, how do we make sure that every person in the company is aligned to customer needs? Many people talk about customer centricity, customer delight and so on. Komatsu had a very simple system. That is, they had a principle called Komatsu Way, K7. Okay. First and foremost is area of technology. If anybody looks at Komatsu's logo, KOMATSU, on the top of T you will find a dot. The meaning, I asked when this joint venture was formed, at that time I was a CXO, I asked my Japanese boss, what is the meaning of this dot on top of the T? He said that is technology with high tech. He said Komatsu always works for high tech. How do we provide products which are high tech, reliable in nature? We have made this very audacious statement to customers. How do we safeguard this? How do we make sure that every time we give a solution which is high tech, which meets his aspiration, which means if it doesn't work, it will have an adverse impact on our brand, because Komatsu with a .T high tech and with L&T, which is known for excellent after sales service, both these are known to customers. God forbid if a product don't work, how do we? So first principle of Komatsu Way, which is technology, which is on this area of how do we make sure that, so we had to make sure that every person in this are aligned in terms of making and ensuring this brand image is protected. The Komatsu is seen as a premium product. Like today, many Toyota or Samsung people go and buy because of brand name. And we know when brand name get dented, what happened in one of the FMCG companies. It took a tremendous effort by the CEO of that company, I mean Nestle for example, to put back the confidence in customers. So what Komatsu did, they created a pressure on us, saying that we are a high-tech company. We need to make sure that our brand name is protected. Larsen & Toubro on one hand, Komatsu, a joint venture. Both these should not be dented. So every person in the organization was made to ensure that we always provide, be it a product, be it a service, or be it a process like selling. Every process or every product and service must meet the aspiration of the brand name, which is high tech. This is one. Second is, how do we make sure that we care for quality? It's not just having X bar or chart or using 7 QC tools and all that. How do we make sure that we go to the Gemba? Okay, Gemba is generally seen as somebody going to the shop floor and seeing what's happening. It's much beyond. Komatsu and Larsen & Toubro joint, our board of directors in the joint venture, used to measure how often top management, senior management, middle management are constantly visiting customer in the field. Because the excavators work in very remote place, in a desert, in a quarry, in a limestone quarry, in a coal mine. We were expected to go and stay there and meet the customer who is using and listen to him, bring back those. Of course, customer will use that opportunity to tell his problems, but it used to give us tremendous amount of inputs, number one. Number two, I will just give an example. If you see an excavator, boom, arm and bucket, okay, and it digs. Many of our customers also used to use it for breaking the rock with a rock breaking attachment. To do that, they started welding pipes on the structure which we have made in the factory with zero defect. Many times when our engineers or we used to go, we used to find that structures are cracking and customers are complaining. Now, we found out it's because he is welding on the structure which we have sent, and when you say weld with improper attention, a small crack starts and then it propagates and it goes and attacks the main welding that we have done. Now, if we had not gone to the field and understood and done a root cause analysis and brought back to our quality, we wouldn't have understood this. Same with hydraulic component. In a dirty atmosphere, it works. So, we laid a lot of emphasis in going to the Gemba. In the factory, in our supplier chain, if somebody is giving us a heat-treated component, or a customer who is deploying our machine in different application. Somebody was using in a riverbed for mining sand. Somebody was using coal, dirty atmosphere. Somebody was using in a very corrosive atmosphere. So when we go there and see and stay put, bring those inputs, and then do a root cause analysis in a quality, which we had 3 or 4 tier quality review meetings, it used to throw up. And then we used to capture this in the form of what is known as Registered Serious Quality Program, RSQP, assign a number, and then iterate the solution to that. Make sure it is iterated, implemented, checked for repeatability, and close it. Sometimes the RSQP used to take 1 year to close. So this was the second thing. I mean, like this, we had 7 ways in which we could do it.
Fabulous. I can relate to Komatsu because in TQM we had a collaboration with Komatsu Career Creation Limited, which was the education and training arm of Komatsu internally, and they used to provide externally also. So we had an agreement with them and provided this. And I've been to Komatsu plants many times.
Komatsu, Japan.
Yeah, in Japan, especially the biggest plant which they have, mother plant, right, Osaka. And once I asked their plant manager, it was at that time $1 billion turnover from one plant. So I asked him, where does he spend bulk of his time? He says 60% of my time is a supplier and rest is the customer. He spends very little time in his own plant. He says most things are bought out. So I need to. And I also recall, famous Komatsu story of medium-sized bulldozer when they were challenging Caterpillar. How when they designed it in the field, not only all designers had to go and run the bulldozer in the field, sitting on the seat, so they get a feel of how it is, not by third party. That's Gemba that you're referring to.
Yeah, and both my joint venture partners, one parent was Larsen & Toubro, where I had grown, other one is Komatsu. Both these brought their own culture to the table in terms of customer centricity. Because having started with Caterpillar license, Larsen & Toubro had tremendous experience in engaging with customer by the time he buys a machine, understand what he wants to do, what kind of job work he wants to do, and then provide him a machine suiting requirement. And then after the machine is installed, commissioned, after sales service. Even today, Komatsu has high respect for Larsen & Toubro for his ability to connect with customer. Komatsu brings products and match these two.
Okay, great. So the next question is regarding switching industries or leadership roles is never easy, especially at the level you have operated. When you moved from Larsen & Toubro Komatsu to SKF, what were the cultural or operational differences that required you to adapt as a leader? And how did you ensure continuity in your leadership philosophy?
I must clarify here. When I came out of L&T Komatsu and as a retiree, I was invited to join the board of one of the SKF subsidiary companies to begin with, called Lincoln Helios, and subsequently SKF India Limited, to join their board as an independent director and chairman. Now, the role of an independent director and chairman is to provide governance in the form of board oversight. I mean, at a very macro level. Okay, which means you need to ensure you understand the nuances of the business, the customer base, the culture, the product that is made, and ensure that all your stake shareholders are protected. Because SKF India Limited is a listed company which has fair amount of shareholding by the public, either by financial institution or mutual funds or people like you and I. Now, the board's job is to provide oversight, right? Now, oversight cannot be provided without you aligning with what's happening. The first starting point is you must know what the product is. So when I started my career in NTTF, it was one product was produced conforming to quality. When I moved to Larsen & Toubro earth moving division, be it hydraulic component or excavator, it is a batch manufacturing on a repetitive mode. SKF is completely different. Before you blink your eye, X number of bearings roll out from a line. Just to tell you, give a perspective, in India itself, the plants of SKF in India, we have about 3 major factories and then 3 supplementary factories. We roll out something like installed capacity is about 160 to 180 million bearings per year. Now, this is a different ball game, right? Now, one has to get to understand, even though not on an executive level, what is the kind of quality levels to be met. Number 2, SKF is a company that has grown over the years all over the world. Today it's about 109 or 108 or 109 years old worldwide. SKF India itself, we celebrated centenary in 2023. And by the way, Komatsu celebrated centenary in 2021. So I am associated with Larsen & Toubro, another company which is in the 86th or 87th year. All these companies have got longevity. How do they have the longevity? Coming back to SKF, they've grown through acquisition and it's worldwide. 108 factories across the world must have same standard in quality and most importantly, ability to capture the data of what is coming in, both upstream and downstream and what moving. And most importantly, sustainability. It's not today that SKF is talking about sustainability. We got into this bandwagon way back in 1980s itself in quality movement, and early 2000 itself, we committed ourselves as a company globally to the cause of climate change, decarbonization, and going carbon neutral. So a lot of things are happening in the area of sustainability. We constantly, SKF is a Swedish company. Sweden is known for steel making. Even during World War II, Hitler had his eye on this Scandinavian countries because a lot of resources available, and steel was very important in World War II. If you secure that particular commodity, then you have a head start. So Sweden now slowly, as a company which uses a lot of steel within the bearing and which generates friction, SKF says we need to offer solution and rotation which will have less friction, which will have longevity, which should be having circularity as its basis. How often we can recondition and put it back. These gigantic bearings which are used in windmill or your tunnel boring machine. So the focus started becoming more on sustainability. Provide alternate solution to steel. Provide such alternate material which are long lasting, which generate less friction, which are usable. And third is of course recon. We are doing a lot of things. We are going to soon attain decarbonization by 2030 or earlier and become carbon neutral. We are talking about everywhere, supplier, customer, factories, all. A big change. So this is a tremendous change. One is in the form of a board of director, understanding of mass manufacturing, and tremendous commitment to cause of care for environment, business, people, and society at large. A big transformation. I am very, very happy that I have been able to navigate across these kinds of experience.
Great. Okay, Gopal, leadership at your level comes with difficult decisions. Can you share an instance where you faced a particularly tough call, one that shaped your outlook or approach to managing people and processes?
Well, pretty early in my career, I started as a shop floor foreman role. And in those days, we used to have compartmentalized department. One will be doing planning, production planning and control. Another one will be managing the shop floor. Somebody else will write the processes and codes for CNC machine. And there will be a maintenance team who will come and attend to breakdown. My boss at that time, Mr. G.K. Apte, he used to take a round with me in the shop floor. It was a formative phase of our, we had invested heavily. He will ask me a lot of questions, why that machine is waiting. So I will tell him it's under maintenance breakdown. What type of breakdown? I said, I have given a maintenance breakdown slip to so and so. I mean, what kind type of problem? So one day he asked me, it's 2 days he asked me. Third day he said, come, I want to take to my office. Then he told me, don't think just giving a maintenance breakdown ends your role. Yes, your job is only production. You must go beyond. What is it? You must know what the diagnosis was. It may not be under your purview. If the diagnosis is done, is the spare parts available or not? Though maintenance team is doing. If spare part is not available, have they raised a purchase requisition? If that's done, has it got converted to a PO? If PO is done, when is getting shipped? You have to navigate through the end. Now, unless you do it, you're not going to grow. I tell you, this converted me from being a mere person with vices, looking at only production, to a wider role. And today, if I have risen to the role of CEO or a board member, this is what opened my eye. Tremendous it was. Today, in a role, a CEO has to look at various things: customer, supplier, environment, government, youngsters, engaging with the institution, a holistic thing. That was a.
So in a way, it prepared you for a.
It paved me to look at things holistically as if you are an entrepreneur.
Excellent, very good learning. So next one is, many of today's young entrepreneurs are grappling with rapid change, competitive markets, and tight margins. From your experience, what is the one piece of advice you would offer to business leaders who are trying to build something lasting?
On one, I must compliment the younger generation of today. They're bold, they're willing to fail. Unlike our days, when we were looking for safety net, we were quite contented if we join a PSU because we thought we have joined, our life is made. These youngsters are blessed. We must thank 1991 economic liberalization, which lifted the economy of the country to such a level that we could educate these youngsters in good institutions. They're bold, and as we are sitting in Bangalore, which is the hub of startups, they're willing to experiment on various kinds of startup, right? The investors are willing to bank. They're willing to wait till these youngsters are able to reach a point where they break even or start growing. But the flip side is, a lot of startups are also failing. While one can operate a lot through an innovative approach, there is a need for youngsters to also bring in logic, bring in some kind of order. Otherwise, so many startups which started made waves, many of them have folded. Of course, the PEs and investors are willing. I believe what I come to know is they are willing to bet on 9 failures, but they are waiting for one of them to hit the pay dirt, and that's what they are waiting for. But the people who start the startup, they go through tremendous amount of difficulty. Now, somehow this is not taught. Point number one. The second point is, from the time of India's independence till today, unfortunately, we have either conformed to quality by getting license, or we mastered the art of repetitive manufacturing, both downstream and upstream, but we have not come up with our own product, right? I mean, somebody in the world thought that 33 or 78 RPM gramophone on which we grew can lead to magnetic tapes, and then to CD-ROMs, and then to your toggles, and today through Wi-Fi, Apple Watch. No Indian company is coming up with this, though several of them had good head start, be it in the area of products, FMCG, or agri, like the way Israel has challenged many things and come up with drip irrigation. My advice and request to the younger generation is, somewhere they must start focusing on, if India is suffering from water problem, what is it that we can do? Okay, without waiting for government, because it should be a product or a process or a service which should not depend on government. I mean, we should do what those 4 biggies did, TCS, Wipro, and those companies, Satyam. They must come up with solution. They must also have holistic view of governance. You can't start a startup, run into trouble, fold it and go, and then you are in trouble and people who worked for you also. If they can do this in a way, India has got tremendous opportunity. We are envy of the world. We are not only going to grow in economy, our per capita GDP, if it has to improve, we cannot depend on government. The youngsters, the entrepreneurs of today should become entrepreneurs, generate jobs, become innovative, and be controlled on the area of governance. Actually, the youngsters are very good in terms of ethics and morality. The governance practice in a company should also be guarded. That's my request to the younger generation. Otherwise, we are in a sweet spot. We are the envy of many developing nations. We should become one of those superpowers where our neighbors who envy us should also fear us. They are able to fear the three superpowers, but the superpowers are able to get away with what they do. But in our case, they are not scared. They only envy us. That will happen if we achieve economic supremacy through innovation, through innovative products and good practices of environment and climate control.
Very good. I think, Gopal, challenges what you just mentioned. Mr. Jamshedji Tata mentioned it 100 years ago, that a country can only be considered independent when it has technological and economic power. Political power is not enough to be independent.
Absolutely.
The challenge is we expect this from the younger generation. We seem to have given them the notion, innovate, startup, and sustenance after startup, sustenance after innovation, and continual improvement. If it is not done, best of the innovation will fail. So this message, how do we give a startup when the large manufacturing companies in India, are they able to do that? Are they able to make world-class products? The best in the world originated from India, not replicated somewhere. Can we set an example to them? Look, it is possible.
I think we have a responsibility and we owe it to them. We need to perhaps mentor, because people of our age can only bring wisdom and knowledge. But in terms of boldness, audacity, innovative approach, they are well set. If there is a matching of these two, I think I would urge many industrial leaders who have finished their innings to engage with these entrepreneurs, to engage with the startup youngsters, and supplement their hunger for doing something new with discipline. When I say discipline, I'm talking about governance practices and also ability to sustain a business model.
All this really implies, in the context of a TQM language, standardization, discipline, and continual improvement as it means to take it to the next level. I may innovate the best product in the world, but when you introduce it, there are bound to be some technical glitches, and it won't remain that way unless somebody else may bring out something better. So you need to continue. My bigger question is, can the industry leaders, not only those who retired, who are in the senior positions today, they have the power. They are working for years, maybe 30, 40, 50 years. Can they demonstrate bringing out products which are the best, unique, best product in the world?
Yeah, there is a caveat. There is also a flip side of this. All these leaders in the world, be it Caterpillar, Komatsu and Earthmoving, be it Sony, be it Samsung, or car industries like Toyota, BYD or Tesla, the expenditure on R&D is very big number. It is almost 3 to 5 to even 6% of their top line. For example, today Komatsu is a $25 billion company. Nearly 3 to 4% is spent on R&D. Now, most of the Indian corporates and conglomerates don't even spend 0.1%. We must, as a nation building, have a commitment to engage. Some companies are doing, but they are still doing R&D for India's requirement. We have to come up with product of solution for the world. The advantage is when you produce a product or service for the world, there are 130 or 150 countries with different culture expectation. You need to meet those standards. So you have to have a robust R&D. Now there are 2-3 ways of doing. One is to look at government to help you, give you a subsidy. Beyond a point they can't do. Or big corporates, can they take a lead? Up to a point. This is where I have a lot of tremendous confidence on our youngsters. This is a connected world. Who knows? They may be able to do cheap R&D. There's no need to spend 4% or 5% on R&D on the total sale. I believe, and I'm very optimistic, because we are living in a connected world, everything happens on snap of a finger. They have access to information and technology around the world. They will be able to do it. All that they need to be controlled. That's the only requirement.
Okay, thank you. So let's come to the last end of the session. Gopal, you've had an extraordinary career leading organizations through change and growth. when you look back, what do you consider your greatest legacy? Not just in terms of achievements, but in terms of the values you have upheld as a leader.
Yeah, when you ask me what should we youngsters do, we did not cover value. I'm glad that you come to that. Finally, your conscience keeper is the value system. If amidst all our neighbors, all of us got independence almost together, we split in 1947. If India is a shining star among all this, I think it's because of our India's rich heritage and culture and value system. That is at a country level. Now, the value system that I have gone through is make sure that even when you know that if you don't do this, you're going to fail. But if it's going to protect your value system, your moral system, do it. Doesn't matter if you take a step backward. I think we must continue on this. This is a legacy and value system that we should never be found wanting on ethics, value system. Just because there's a no smoking sign is there somewhere and therefore we should not smoke. Even when we are not standing under a no smoking zone, we should be. And I'm very, very happy and proud that most of the Indians, especially the lower and middle class, lower middle and slightly upper middle class children, they are very unforgiving on this aspect, on ethics. It should continue, it should only get reinforced, and that will stand us in very good stead. And I'm very proud that we as a country are following this value system which is handed over to us for the last 20 or not centuries. And this should only get reinforced. And this has been my backbone and my conscience keeper all through my career of 40 years and even today.
Great. Thank you very much, Gopal, for your responses, for sharing your experiences. And it's wonderful. And I'm sure the listeners who will listen to your experience will find it value adding and maybe encourage them to follow some of your advice which you've given. Thank you very much.
Indeed a pleasure, Mr. Mehta, that I'm happy that you found me relevant and relevant enough to come and talk and give some kind of value add to this program. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Okay. Namaste.